Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
So, Mike, you think we can shoehorn in some Green Bay shit talk into the program?
Oh, we can always horn in some Green Bay shit talk.
I mean, they suck. What else can you say? Right. Welcome back for another episode of SportsBall. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by my co-host and Tampa Bay superfan through thick and thin. I can't stress the thin part enough. It's Mike Maharrey. Mike, how are you doing?
Yeah, so now we get to have a live show where everybody can watch my post-Lightning loss malaise.
I know that. I'm going to be honest with you. Your team kind of ruined one of my bits for later in the program.
Yeah, sorry.
But the show must go on.
That's what the Lightning does. They ruin things.
The show must go on. We're going to take a quick look in the live chat. I saw Dave Benner was here. Adam Sikozin is here. Lyle Durio is here. Lyle asks, are we allowed to sports again? Well, we aren't, but the NHL is.
Yes.
And the NBA is in a bubble. And I guess that's about it.
Yeah, the NASCAR boys are racing.
They're racing. Do they wear masks when they're inside their
some of the baseball players wear masks while they're playing too.
Yeah.
There's a Tampa Bay Rays player, Yandy Diaz, who always wears his mask below his nose. While he's batting, I can't figure it out. It's a weird thing.
That is, well, it defeats the purpose. But anyway, we're not going to do that this week. I tell you what we are going to do. I saw an awesome graphic from your boy Steve Spurrier.
Oh yes.
Now I call him your boy, because of course he is a famous native Tennessean, is what he really is.
It's true.
But he's an extra famous for being a head coach of the Florida Gators. But Steve Spurrier was asked what he thinks about some major conferences playing fall football versus some major conferences look like they're not going to be playing fall football. And what will the result be when it comes to the legitimate champion of the season? And this is what Spurrier said. He said, the SEC and ACC should just play their seasons and winners face off for the national title because one conference was going to win it anyway.
Well, where's the lie?
Well, I was just about to ask you. So, I mean, is he right or wrong?
Well, if history is any indication, I mean, I guess maybe Ohio State could argue that, hey, what about us? But they're not playing anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the what about them is A, they're not competing, and B, they lose to Clemson. So that's
true.
That's the what about us. I mean, joking aside, that was actually one of my favorite games last season. That was an awesome game they played, and Clemson came from behind to win, so they got the right to go get blown out by LSU. So, I mean, unless you think Ohio State was going to narrowly win that game and then not lose by 40 to LSU, then it's a moot point.
True.
But speaking of people who are on board, the Big 12. The Big 12, I'll tell you, this was kind of the Big 12's moment to shine. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the buzz in sports media was when you see individual programs bowing out. Let's be honest, that didn't carry too much weight because when UMass cancels their season and they won like one game in the last 2 years, no one cares.
Or when we lost mighty UConn.
Mighty UConn.
With their 2 wins in the last, 3 years?
3 years, yikes. Yes. Yeah. But when the MAC shut down, which is not a Power 5 conference, it's a group of 5, but it's still a conference, and they had members whose schedules were tied to a number of other Power Conference teams. That sort of set the stage for, is everyone going to fall in suit? Like now that they've crossed the Rubicon of canceling fall football, will everyone fall in line and not want to be the people who held out and then something horrible happened or lawsuits or whatever?
Right.
Well, the Big 12 was the Power 5 in the middle. Half of the Power 5 had said game on. Half the Power 5 had said spring or never.
Right.
And the Big 12 was sort of the catalyst of, You got the sense that if they said no football, they might have all said no football. But if a majority of the Power 5 says we're playing fall football as scheduled, you kind of think at this point, I'm hopeful it's going to go on as scheduled.
Yeah.
Sure enough, the Big 12 announces their 2020 football schedule with the intent to play exactly as you see here. They feel confident that their protocols and the procedures they have in place is going to make the game perfectly safe. And medical experts from the Big 12 joined the chorus of medical experts from the ACC in saying that they felt that the season could be played completely as safely as any normal football season.
Yeah, it's the proverbial swing state.
Yes, they are. The Midwest has turned into the swing states for college football, and there you have it. Let me ask you this before: are you surprised by that, or did you think that football was going to go on, or did you think that football was dead?
I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest. I kind of felt like when the Big Ten pulled the plug, that the other conferences would fall in line and follow suit, because you have such a, what's the word I'm looking for? A risk aversion when it comes to college administrators and that type. So I was a bit surprised. I figured that the SEC would, throw up some resistance, but I kind of felt like when the Big Ten pulled the plug, the Pac-12, nobody cares, but but the Big Ten, that was kind of a big deal. So I am a little bit surprised in a pleasant way, because Lord, I want some college football, man.
I do too, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what this is going to mean for college football later in the show, but I want to end this part of the segment on this note. If college football is played in both the fall and the spring, between some conferences playing as scheduled and some conferences playing later,
right?
Who is the national champion?
Whoever wins that Big 12 SEC ACC matchup, in my opinion.
I agree.
Is spring football even really going? It's going to be like, well, you said it off air. It's going to be like intramural football when you boil it all down, right?
It really is. I think it's. I feel like there's a certain level of naivete for people who have said, like, if they canceled football for the whole season, I would think they're making a terrible mistake. But at least you went all or nothing.
Right.
But to say that you're going to postpone football and play it in the spring means, first of all, scheduling nightmare, right? Because football doesn't happen in the spring. So it's going to be blazing new territory. Second problem is, any player worth anything that's an NFL draft prospect is not playing football in the spring.
No.
Why would they take that risk? And here's the third thing, and I actually didn't think of this until I saw it commented on elsewhere. Even if you're Trevor Lawrence, and even if you play, say, in the spring, and even if you go through injury-free and it doesn't affect your draft stock, the fact of the matter is football's a really difficult sport. Mm-hmm. It's very taxing on the body. This is why you see guys retire and 5 years later they're on crutches and wheelchairs.
Exactly.
I think it's irresponsible to expect a player to play a football season, be drafted in what would be your bowl season, and then get ready for training camp like 60 days later. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take it a step farther. Just consider the fact that if you're playing spring football, then really you're going straight from a true season into another true season without much of a break with these young athletes. And if the mantra is player safety, and looking out for the best interest of the players, that's not it. So you're really looking at if they do spring football, then you're looking at having to push back the beginning of the next fall season as well. So then you're starting to mess with 2021, because I just don't think it would be, again, responsible to put those kids back out there in trying to start up a season in late August, early September of the following year.
Well, we joke that the Pac-12 teams probably won't be competing in the college football playoffs, heavily with an Alabama, a Clemson, and LSU in the next few years. But with that said, even if you're not a draft prospect, but say you're at least a junior who sees time on the field, or is a starter but not an NFL draft prospect, so you would come back for your senior season regardless, because you're not going to be playing in professionals. It's ridiculous for that guy to be playing like May 1st and then be playing August 30th. That's crazy.
Yeah,
people who have never been through the rigors of a season have no idea how insurmountable that would be. And especially for their young bodies. You're exactly to your point. They're harping on player safety, and that would be probably the least safe concurrence of seasons in the history of the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that said, go ahead and fire away, Mike.
Well, you know what? I've got a puck to the head for you.
All right.
We're going to stick with football. You know, there are a lot of guys out there that dream of playing in the NFL, and you've got a lot of guys that don't get drafted, but manage to get signed on and make it into a training camp. And
sure.
One such person was, I think his name is Kema Siverand, and I could be mispronouncing that, but close enough. He was an undrafted free agent, played at Texas A&M, and then he was I think a fifth-year transfer to Oklahoma State. Played a little bit wide receiver, a little bit defensive back, and managed to get a contract with the Seattle Seahawks. So he's, had the opportunity to kind of make his way into the NFL, and I was kind of taking a shot at making it as a special teams player. Now, you want to know how not to get a job in the NFL?
Please tell me.
Break the rules.
No!
Especially in the era of COVID. You know what Kema tried to do? He tried to sneak a woman into his hotel room. Not only did he try to sneak her in, he dressed her up as if she were a Seattle football player, which just amuses me for some reason. He was caught on the hotel video trying to sneak her in and was summarily dismissed from the Seattle Seahawks. Kemi, you get a puck to the head because you just blew your chance to play in the NFL. I hope she was hot.
I'm going to rate that as less than ideal.
Yes, absolutely. So there you go. There's your puck.
What does that say about Seattle football players that a woman can pass for one in a hotel room?
There you go. Well, apparently she didn't, but that he thought she could.
Okay.
Maybe that's why they got rid of him.
Fair.
They all felt dissed.
Fair.
Yeah. So I've got a little something for you real quick. We haven't done this segment since we relaunched, but it's a little segment of who would you rather be.
Oh.
And so this isn't an actual person. It's just kind of a theoretical person. Mm-hmm. So who would you rather be? NFL rookie
mm-hmm.
making the minimum rookie salary.
Okay.
Or an NHL player making the minimum NHL salary.
I guess I'm going to say NFL.
That's what I would have thought too, and that would not be a wise choice.
Really?
No, the minimum salary for an NFL player, rookie, on a 1 year mm-hmm. contract is $480,000 under the current CBA,
mm-hmm.
and the minimum salary for an NHL player is $650,000.
Oh, well, for $480,000, I'll just stay home.
There you go. I'll stay home for $250,000. How about that?
I'll try to sneak you into the hotel room for that.
You dress me up as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers player. I might be able to pass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, their quarterback is about the same age as you, so.
Yes, that is not
there
wrong.
You go. With that said, we're going to take another quick look in the live chat before we move on. Andrew Avery says, howdy, friends and neighbors. Andrew, we're so glad that you're here. So now that Dave left. I think he was offended by our shitting on Green Bay. So now that Andrew's here, we'll shit on the Pats.
Shall we dub Andrew Superfan Andrew Avery?
Yeah. SportsBall Superfan Andrew Avery. Lyle Durio is also here, who says, I just hope our scholar athletes get a quality education.
Well, that's
amen, right? Lyle.
That's exactly the student.
Yes,
athletes.
You were a top tier student athlete.
I was actually a ACHA academic All-American.
Yeah. I wasn't
more academic than All-American.
I wasn't being an asshole. I was literally saying.
I don't think a lot of people know that. That's not a necessarily advertised thing, but that is a true story.
Speaking of academic All-Americans, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for the LP Team of the Week.
Oh, one of my faves.
You tried. The LP Team of the Week, Columbus, the Columbus Blue Jackets. First of all, by the way, I know that he can't change his face, the mascot, but that's the perfect face for this segment.
Absolutely.
Imagine, if you will, going 111 minutes without scoring a goal, which typically means you lose, which you do, but that was all in one game.
I know. 5
overtimes, which is 8 periods total. I'll be honest with you, I was really hoping they were making it through the 5th OT just so you could say they played 3 full games.
Yeah.
I was really, but no, they only played 2 2/3 full games.
Fifth longest game in NHL history.
Yeah, and I knew that it wasn't quite the longest game in NHL history, but didn't it have the record for the most shots?
I don't know that for a fact, but good Lord, it had to be close.
So there you can see the scoring summary, and the reason why I had the scoring summary brought up is that you can see Tampa Bay ties it up in the 3rd.
Yes,
and then you have no goals, no goals, no goals, no goals in Tampa Bay in the 5th OT, halfway through the 5th OT, which is going to bring us to our kind of debate/discussion segment of today's show. Pull up the graphic here so now everyone understands why we named this episode the 7th period stretch. Should the NHL ditch the current overtime playoff format for the playoffs?
Yeah, and this is actually something that is not just being discussed on SportsBall. This is something that has come up in hockey circles.
Mm-hmm.
There are various proposals. I've heard, 1 overtime in a shootout, maybe 2 overtimes in a shootout, or maybe doing the overtime is the 3-on-3 like they do during the regular season. So there's a number of thoughts out there. My opinion, absolutely not. Don't mess with it. There is nothing better than overtime playoff hockey. And, obviously 5 periods of overtime hockey is a little bit extreme, but I mean, this has only happened a handful of times in NHL history. This is an outlier. And I think, we often overreact to things. And, it's the reason that we have the TSA and various other government programs that we have, because somebody freaks out over one incident. I don't think it's time to make a change to the whole structure. Generally you get an overtime, it's 1.5 periods.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's exciting hockey. I definitely do not want to go to a shootout because I don't know. There's something about the whole shootout thing. It's like you're winning the game, but it's not really playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
A goalie against a shooter is not the game, and makes sense in regular season. So you don't have, long regular season games, but I'm just not a fan of the change. I love overtime hockey. It's on the edge of your seat. It's exciting. And you're settling the game in the way the game is supposed to be played, and not, some weird quirky thing that's not true to the sport itself. So that's my opinion.
I am so glad you took such a hard stance to keep it the same, so that I can just play devil's advocate the rest of the show. Now, I will say that I'm obviously not the biggest hockey fan in the world, but I think I speak for the overwhelming majority of people, sports pundits, league officials, etc. No one wants to see shootouts. Shootouts are fun in a vacuum, but with playoffs on the line, they don't want it to come down to shootouts.
I'm a goalie. I hate shootouts.
Imagine my surprise. But, I mean, with some of the teams you've been on, you're basically playing a shootout for 50 minutes.
That's true. Shootout.
Well, there you go. Well, then you have plenty of practice.
Exactly.
So I'm not advocating the shootout, but I want to at least get your thoughts on a few of the ideas that are currently floating out there. So idea number 1 is keep it exactly the way it is. And you've said that that's what you advocate for right this minute. I will say the devil's advocate there would be, yes, this is an outlier, but it does happen. The whole point of tweaking the rules is so things you don't want to have happen don't happen. Just because they don't happen often doesn't mean you don't want them to not happen. With that said, and this happens sometimes in college football as well, and you have tons of overtimes. But Hockey's a little bit different because you're playing a series, right? And this wasn't Game 7, and even if it was, you'd have another series because this wasn't the Stanley Cup Finals.
This was just Game 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was Games 1, 2, and 3. A lot of people feel that when you have 3+, we'll say 3+ overtimes, both of these teams have now been damaged. The amount of endurance and athleticism and energy and potential injury, I don't think injuries were a significant issue, but the more tired you get, especially the longer series goes, the more likely injuries can happen. If their upcoming opponents sweep their series 4-0, and someone who just swept 4-0 then plays the winner of Tampa and Columbus, who, let's say it goes to 6 or 7 games, and let's say they have another overtime game of 1 or 2 periods, I don't think there's any world where Vegas isn't heavily favoring the team who has way less hours on ice leading into the second series.
Well, then that would eliminate all of the teams that had to do the 5-series play-in.
Well, I'm not here to defend the series play-in because that's not a regular season of hockey anyway.
Right.
But that being neither here nor there, this could happen in any season. I mean, imagine if this were the semifinals, and let's say, you know, who's a team that you really would hate to see in the Stanley Cup if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning?
As far as having to play them?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, you know, looking at the West, I think right now I don't want to play Colorado.
If you had to if Colorado had already punched their ticket and they were already riding on a few extra days rest, and you just ended a series with, say, a Columbus on a 5 overtime thriller, come on, man, they're gonna lose that.
I'm not gonna loosen my heels up on this at all because, you know, you can make the same argument with the advantage of a team that, you know, let's say a Colorado rolls through the West and they win all 3 of their series in 4 games. So they've only played 16 games. And then the team on the other side, say it's the Lightning, they have to play 4 7-game series. Well, you know, they're 3-6-9. They're 9 games ahead in terms of playing time than the Colorado Avalanche. I just think it's part of the game and you have to roll with the punches. I don't see any solution to the overtime that to me is going to swing it that I would want it to be that way.
Well, good, because there are proposed solutions.
Okay.
Next proposed solution, and this is not exactly like it's blazing a trail. Have 1 overtime period. After the end of overtime period, if the score is still tied, drop to 4-on-4. Then drop to 3-on-3 in the third overtime. You could still have multiple overtimes, but again, the likelihood that you have more than 1 or 2 overtimes is so small. It's almost a certainty that game that was played the other day would not have happened the way it happened.
I would be more amenable to that than any scenario that has a shootout. I want to absolutely avoid the shootout.
Mm-hmm.
4-on-4 is enough like regular hockey that I'd be all right with it. When you get to 3-on-3, then that gets a little weird. It's fun. It's fun for an overtime kind of thing in the regular season. I don't know that I'd want to see that in the playoffs. So
you think 4-on-4 would be legitimate, but 3-on-3 would be a gimmick?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you at least be open to the idea if they said, well, we're gonna have double O-time 4v4s next year?
I wouldn't quit watching hockey, although I may quit watching the Lightning just because.
I was just about to say, the Mike Maharrey I know told me he was going to stop watching hockey before the show started.
I didn't say hockey, I said the Lightning.
Well,
I might pick another team to watch. Maybe I'll start watching Colorado.
Yeah. Well, okay, fair enough. Well, I'll end it on this. You had already pointed out that it's very unlikely that you have a game like that, a series like that. But with that said, would your opinion be different if a star player, a critical piece on your team, were to go down with an injury in a 3rd, 4th, 5th overtime of a game?
I don't think I would because, I mean, injuries are a part of hockey. I mean, I watched the Tampa Bay Lightning's best defenseman fall down and I thought he broke his ankle in basically a meaningless round robin game. So, you can have injuries at any point, and I don't know. That's just the way my brain's not really wired like that. It's part of the game. And it's kind of like, and we've had this debate before, on, whether or not officiating changes the outcome of the game. And my attitude's always been, officiating is what it is. You have to overcome it. So that's always kind of the mentality that I take. You deal with the hand that you're dealt, and you keep rolling. So I don't think I would say, oh my gosh, Hedman got hurt in the 4 overtime. We've got to do something about this.
Well,
that's just me.
Since Mike has no heart, we're going to go ahead and get our solemn faces on for all the players that are going to get injured in their 9-period game. Let me go ahead and throw up the graphic for all the players who won't finish the season. That apparently isn't there anymore. That's weird.
Oh, that's sad.
That is sad. I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is.
Ah.
All right.
Always makes me laugh.
It's time for In Memoriam. We'll remember a player, a team, a coach, whoever, whose sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike, who are you remembering this week?
It is with very little mourning that I remember today the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, there are a number of teams that I could have picked for In Memoriam today, because there were a number of teams that were eliminated in the play-in rounds. But Pittsburgh is my pick because of all of the teams, they were the one team that nobody expected to get bounced out of the playoffs. Going into this, the Pens were 3rd in the Metropolitan Division. They were 5th overall in the East. They were solidly locked into a playoff position. But then they had to play the Montreal Canadiens, who barely snuck into the play-in round to begin with. But the Pens, being the Pens, they got bounced 3-1. I'm sure Sidney Crosby is somewhere shedding big tears, and I really don't feel bad for him.
Those were some particularly large tears, I gotta say.
Yes, indeed.
He should probably get that checked out.
Yes.
It's what it is that they're particularly salty, which I know you enjoy.
I do enjoy that.
I'm remembering the half or the 40% of the Power 5 that will not be playing fall football. So that's the Big Ten and the Pac-12. There's the Big Ten. The Big Ten was one of the first ones to announce that they would not be going on and playing fall football. And then, of course, the Pac-12. They'll have to be doing their dabs in April. As a quick recap of what we had said in the early part of the show, these teams presumptively will be playing seasons, albeit conference seasons, in the spring. And they won't be playing against teams that already played seasons. Like, the SEC champion's not going to turn around 4 months later and play another game, right?
No.
So I see no other way forward for them but to then kind of have their own little pseudo playoff or championship game between their conferences. So you and I are both in agreement that write it down, folks, this is what's going to happen. College football, now granted not everyone will be playing, but it will be called the NCAA 2020-2021 season, will be played, and there will be a champion. And then after that season is over, there will be more teams play, and they will all cry horrible, horrible crocodile tears that they'll be crying Sidney Crosby tears that they don't also get considered to be the champion. Do you think that's what's good?
And we're going to point and laugh at them.
We are going to point and laugh at them. God, I really hope it's USC. I don't know why. I hope USC wins the Pac-12 this year and then tries to declare themselves the champion, having never played any teams from the ACC or SEC.
That would be outstanding.
It would be. Do you have a final thought?
I do have a final thought. You recall that last week your LP team of the week was the Tampa Bay Rays, right?
Yes.
They've won 6 out of 7 since then.
And why is that?
Because I quit watching.
Because you quit watching. Exactly right. So what are you going to do for the rest of the Lightning series?
I'll probably end up watching. I can't avert my eyes. But that being said, it will probably be a quick series, and then they can be your LP team of the week when they get bounced after winning the first game in 5 overtimes.
You realize now I'm going to have to find a picture of some Lightning players with gigantic tears rolling down their cheeks, right?
Yes.
Dims just the brakes. My final thought is while we're listing people who are going against the Rona trend, Jerry Jones says he plans to have every Dallas Cowboys home game this year played in front of fans.
Good for Jerry.
Jera. Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it's particularly good. I mean, I don't know if he would have survived financially without those ticket sales this year. So good on them.
Yeah.
Protecting small businesses like the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, they got to pay for all that art his wife hung in the stadium.
Also true.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of SportsBall, and we'll be back. I wish we could, we got to update our graphics and stuff so we have a very specific time that the show is coming on and where people can see our awesome stuff and everything. I say that out loud because I'm trying to coax you into doing it.
Yeah, do we really want to have a specific time that I'm going to flake out of? And
it'll be on this day. It'll be on Thursday.
Yeah, it'll be on Thursday.
It'll be on Thursday after the Lightning lose. I'm sorry. My bad. That was poor form on my part. Guys, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.